Hi and welcome. Today I have a new thing I saw on someone else. I'm not trying to take credit for. I didn't come up with it, but see several people turning the baby board books. They're real thick so they can chew on them and they won't bend the pages. Anyways, they're turning those into mixed media. And it's not a brand new thing. It's been around for a little while, but I have never done it. So I went thrifting the other day and picked up a few of these board books that I'm going to start mixed media projects in them. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a fun thing. Takes a little prep work. As you can see, I had to sand all those pages with some fine sandpaper just to get the gloss off. And you don't have to, I guess. Some people don't do that, but I thought it'd be better safe than sorry. And then 2 coats of gesso. So it's a little bit of a prep work. I went through and sanded all my pages at the same time, and then I gessoed. I'm continually gessoing them, so it's not totally all gessoed yet, but I'm working on it. And so for this first page, I'm doing the first inside page. I'm waiting to get an inspired idea for the covers. So I'm just taking some old papers or stamped papers and just covering the entire first page spread. And so this takes a little bit of time to cover this whole page. I think this book is like maybe 5 or 6 by 6. It's either 5 by 5 or 6 by 6 or somewhere in between there. I can't wait to do it. I bought a couple tiny ones, and they're maybe like 3 by 3 or something like that. I'm excited about those, to do those. And they don't have a whole lot of pages in them. So I think this one might have 7 spreads you can do in the entire book. And so I don't know, I think I'm gonna like this process. We'll see how it musters out, but I definitely want to get some smaller in size than this. And the thing is, if you go to a thrift store, you can get them real cheap. I mean, I think I bought some for like 50 cents each. And I don't know, I'm excited about it. Anyway, so I'm just taking all sorts of some scraps mostly of some papers, some book papers, some dictionary papers. That's a piece from an old menu book or recipe book. And so I'm just covering the entire inside. I've sped the speed up a little bit because, that's basically all I'm doing right here is just covering the white area. And I'm basically just trying to get some different font sizes, some maybe a table or just something that looks a little different than the other pieces. So if you like to collage and start collecting things like books or what I always am looking for is an old math book. I would love to find an old math book, where the papers aren't glossy and full of pretty, drawings. I want an old one. I also want an old telephone book. I think that would be fun to have. I did find on my most recent trip, I scored it's an old spelling book. So it's just a list of spelling words. So I'm going to be starting to use some of that. And then also some music sheets. I mean, I have a couple old songbooks, but I think it'll be fun to use some music sheets. So I'm just always keeping my eye out for something different. Yard sales is another good place to find that kind of thing. And probably cheaper there. Although 50 cents for a board book is not bad. I didn't think. And I think this is the last piece I gotta put on, because I'll just use it in both empty spots. Trimming I found was a little different because it was so thick. It was thicker than a regular book. So I did do some of the trimming with the scissors, and then I found that it was a little bit easier just to put the page onto a self-healing cutting mat. I have a small one that fits right on my desk. I also have a real large one, but this is perfect for putting it on my desk, and just got an X-Acto knife out, and it actually went down the sides fairly easily. And because the pages are so thick, you don't really have to worry about the corners. It just kind of goes right around the corner. So I just take my boning tool and just push into that crease a little bit. Now, from what I understand, if I remove this piece in the back, you can either remove it or just cut it and use it as part of your spine. I'm going to do something to my spine. I haven't decided what yet, but I'll figure that out when I do the covers, the front and the back. But that will allow your book to kind of expand a little bit and still lay flat. So I'm excited about that. And as I typically like to do with book paper or paper like this, is to give it a seal with some collage medium, just so that if I use some inks or anything on top, it will not just soak right into the paper, and I like it to kind of sit on top of the paper. So just a light coat of collage medium to seal it a little bit. It's not a necessary step if you don't feel you're going to make any decisions you regret. But seems like I do quite often. So now I've just picked out several things to collage with. I've got Tim Holtz products like that piece right there. And I've got from digital downloads, several pieces from that. Right now I'm taking some distress ink and just going around the edges because things will be laid down, and I thought I should get the edges first before I had things coming really close. And so I came in far with Vintage Photo, and now I'm just going around the very perimeter edge with some scorched timber to add a little bit of darkness there. In my first layout, I kind of worked it through somewhat, and I believe I'm going to have in the center of the book nothing there. So I decide that I would like to have maybe just some color there. And so I start with speckled egg, and remember I've sealed this with collage medium, and had I not, it would be really smudgy because it's hard to get a nice smooth application of distress ink onto something that is that's going to soak it up unevenly. But because I sealed it, it's not visible very much. So I got a little bit of a color there, but I actually am going to take some of both the colors, I believe. I've got Stormy Sky, that's the darker one. And so I'm just going to add some splatters, mainly around the center, because that's where you're going to see it. But I do put a little in other places. And then I'm also going to use some salvaged patina in the same way. Just some splatters to add some color. And I'm going to dry it, and the areas that have a little much, I just kind of dab off. And so now I can start laying down my pieces. I know this piece is going to go in the back on the left, so I can put that down. And this butterfly is from Tim Holtz. I'm thinking it's the palette, possibly. And then this is a digital download. It had a bunch of flowers on backgrounds. It's really pretty. And you could cut the flowers out, or you could leave them on a background. And I plan to do both at different times. So this one I wanted the whole card. And I also have digital printouts of their little circles of just numbers and distress things, and then the numbers that look like they're aged metal plates. That's also from a digital, I've got a lot of digital prints. This piece right here looks like a, well, that, oh, I just switched. That is a number strip from Tim Holtz, and I stick that up near the butterfly. And that's kind of like a label, and it has a look of dimension to it, and it does look like that. Like you think when you touch it, you're going to feel the dimension, but you don't. So I'm just going to stamp it with a stamp from the, I think that's the Eccentric stamp from Stampers Anonymous and Tim Holtz. And it says telephone number, or just telephone, and then it's got a number. Going to come back to that side later, but for now I'm going to move on to the right side. And this piece here is a digital download. It's like full pages of a flower with like a receipt or something in the background. They're really pretty, and so I just took a section of it, and I liked it because the colors were similar to the flower card on the other side. But it has a big open spot there, and so I thought I will stamp this stamp from Tim Holtz. And then just as I'm about to stamp, I'm like, I think I would rather do some embossing there. So I wipe off the ink and change it out, and I'm stamping with some embossing stamp, and then I'm going to use some black embossing powder in black, and a little bit there just stuck to my distress ink that I edged there because it was not completely dry yet. That's all right. You can just remove it with a small brush. And I put the rest of that back in the pot, and I tossed it. And now I am distressing or embossing that stamp. And this flower here was in part of the collection of flowers that I printed. And I want it to kind of go in front and in back of this card. So the first part I glue is what's going to be glued to the front of the card, just so it stays together. And then I can put glue on the card, and the rest of the flower that's just going to be glued to the back of the page. Now with these digital files, you do have to do a lot of cutting. So, but I don't mind doing that. I'll usually cut as I'm watching a movie or something, and so I'll just sit and I'll just cut out a bunch of things. Those were little scraps left of another number, and I'm like, oh, I might use those sometime. And sure enough, I mean, they're just tiny little scraps, but I thought, how cute would they be just to kind of tuck those underneath that card. And turns out the yellow, because there's a little bit of yellow on the other page, and I thought, well, that will kind of bring in some of that yellow. So I hadn't, when I laid that down, it was just a little crooked. And because I had sealed that page, I could lift it off with minor damage and only to the areas that I'm recovering. So I could lift that up and move it without any problem. And here is another number list from Tim Holtz. And this is a label from a digital print. Now you may think this is going together really fast, but I did spend not just a few minutes figuring it all out beforehand. What exactly I wanted where. I mean, things move around, like say that butterfly right there. I haven't decided. I know I'm going to use it. I've picked it out amongst other butterflies, so I went through that process of deciding, okay, I want to put a butterfly, which one do I want? So all that happened prior to my filming. Got a pretty much an idea of what's going to go where, but things move around. And then when I'm done, like right here, I've used all the pieces that I thought I was going to use. But then I look at it and think, okay, I do need something else here or there. So I'm using a sentiment. I think this is from Small Talk, sticker book of Tim Holtz. And it says, you can never have too much happy. And because that was a pretty long sentiment, I decided to cut it in two because it's going to go down in that little open square. And I do glue it. And my glue takes a minute to dry on the sealed paper so I can have a little time to move it. Just adding a little more distressing around the edges. So now I gave that a critical look, and I think I need a little bit of something down the side of that piece of Tim Holtz Ephemera. And here I'm using a paper strip from Tim Holtz. And it's kind of got a little green design. And I got some green going on, so that'll be good. And just down the side, I try not to line up the bottoms so that they're a little bit more visually interesting at a different line. And then I decide there's a couple areas I'm gonna add a stamp right down here in this corner, and that says book 710. And then on the other side, at the very bottom of that card, it's kind of blank there. So I'm going to add a number stamp. And these are from Tim Holtz Eccentric stamps. And I'm just using some StazOn Ink in black. And I think that is it. I got some final pictures coming up. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up and have an awesome day.